What about cooking indoors? I think that that's more of a recent phenomenon, even for like just humans in general. We used to cook outside by a fire, and now we've sort of brought that fire indoors to our hobs, our stove, stovetops and
Yeah.
ovens. I certainly know I have an air filter in my kitchen area, and I have one in my bedroom. And every time I cook, every time it's when I cook bacon and when I cook eggs. I don't know what it is,
The
but the
good
bacon
stuff.
always
The good
it's
stuff.
it's it's the good stuff. Those air filters start going crazy. So of
Yeah.
course
Well, they
it
like
reminds
bacon.
me. Yeah, so I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to put on the fan. So
Yeah.
like it's changing my behavior, which is a good
Right.
thing because the air filter starts like whirring much
Right.
higher, and then I'll usually open a door to kind of let the kitchen air out. But what do you think about cooking indoors and in terms of the I don't know what they'd be called, but the compounds that are created under high heat, like when you're cooking bacon fat, I'm sure that that's creating something that's not great for lungs.
Yeah. Yeah, or things like acrylamide, which is like toast, right? Who wants to give up
Right.
toast, right?
Yeah,
Anytime
yeah.
you kind of singe carbohydrates, synthetic carbohydrates, like starches, you tend to get this thing called acrylamide, which is linked to a whole bunch of. But listen, we can't go nuts with all of this stuff. Like I try to kind of put in perspective. But to your point about indoor cooking, look, I have gas stove and gas appliances, and I had a podcast with someone who was interviewing me and they were talking about how, they have electric conduction and this. And I felt like, in a way that if I didn't know what I knew, I would be a little shamed by that conversation. And I think people need to understand you don't have to renovate your whole house and flip out. That's not what this is about. I had a flame retardant couch for literally 7 or 8 years that I knew full
Yeah.
on all of the health effects, flame retardant chemicals, my kids were jumping on it, whatever. But we didn't have an extra 3 grand at the time to just throw away and go get a new couch. That was like, 8 or 9 years ago. Now they're much more available. But the idea is that, I have learned to manage around some things that you cannot change. It's like the Serenity Prayer. So our gas stuff has really great air filtration, to your point. You want to open windows. You want to make sure your hood is working. You want to make sure that you're using the least amount of gas time that you can, that your exhausts work well, and that there's no lint or dust blocking that exhaust for the dryer. You want to get rid of nonstick pans because whenever you heat them up, they're going to off gas, and it's been well studied, and I write about it. They even, stories about, people living in small apartments that kill their birds because the birds are most sensitive, right? Canary in a coal
Mm.
mine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a legitimate story. When you burn, nonstick pans, it can actually really release toxic gases. So again, it's not to throw everything away and flip out. It's how do you manage reasonably until you have a renovation or you want to remediate or you're up for a new appliance or a new couch. Then I think it's really smart to layer those choices in, especially if they're costly.
Yeah, and with the couch situation, I'll just say that I have 2 boys, and they're feral animals, and I am just waiting for them to destroy the couch, and
Yeah.
it's like, the couch is dying, and once it dies, I will invest in a new couch as well. So it's like I totally get the, maybe wanna do it right now. It's like, also, if you have young children, just know that they're going to destroy whatever pretty new couch that you buy anyway, so just
Exactly.
wait it out, let them
Yeah.
destroy it, and then you don't care about then you don't care
No,
about
it
when you
makes
throw it out,
sense.
right?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's just having a reasonably almost like, yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where I was on the ledge, like flipping out for years because I was in this siloed world where I'm like, why didn't I learn this in med school? And where was this not taught? And why do I have to reach out to EWG and work with all their toxicologists to learn this? And, I didn't understand why this wasn't part of our educational training when the material is so robust. So I went from making my own stuff and figuring it out and 10-year journey. And now I've come full circle with 2 teenage boys and realized that life doesn't work black and white, that you have to really be kind to yourself and know that doing a good job, swapping things out. Maybe it's one product a month or trying a new vegetable that's cruciferous and is able to churn up, your liver detox pathways because cruciferous vegetables will do that. Maybe those are the things you incorporate in a positive way. And that way you start to fill up with lots of really great alternatives. And that's to me very positive.
I think I started just personally, I started just swapping out the plastic Tupperware just for glass. So whenever we grocery shop, even still like the food packaging, I know I don't want to kind of harp on this, but God, it's like all the plastic. Like if I buy anything, everything's always in plastic.
Right.
You have to take the bag and you have to put the fruit in the plastic bag. It's so annoying. So anyway, everything kind of goes into, and any foods that I prepare, that was the first change that I made was like a glass storage
It's a good
container.
one.
Yeah, and it's an easy one that's accessible to most. I think that's a reasonable request. The only thing I would say is if that isn't available to you right now, just don't microwave anything in plastic. So
Yeah.
if you want to warm something up, take it out of the plastic item, put it on the hob, put it on the stovetop, and then slowly warm it up that way. You mentioned nonstick as something that we want to avoid. Are there materials like ceramic, cast iron? What are some of the things that we might want to look for if we're looking to, like, if you're doing your eggs every day or you're doing your
Hmm.
stir fry or what have you? What are some of the materials that we want to be cognizant of, if I can
Yeah.
get that word out,
Yeah.
in terms of the materials that our cookware is made with and bakeware?
So great question. So, materials that don't break down, right? Plastics, we thought were so hardy, they break down. The chemicals in plastics, and plenty of studies in the book, and I share that really they migrate from plastics into the food and drinks that you're cooking with. And one example that I think is really so interesting and visible is that when you have Tupperware that's brand new and you run it through the dishwasher a few times, it becomes opaque. You can't see through it. That clearly is saying that high heat changes its properties. Whereas with materials like glass and stainless steel and cast iron, ceramic is a harder lift for me because I know that certain glazes can be, have lead in them. So I'm a little less of a ceramics gal unless there's really good third-party testing or real information behind it. Otherwise, it's a lot of marketing and there's no regulation. But I do like stainless steel, 18/8 composition. There's different food grades of stainless steel. And then there's, glass and Pyrex and then cast iron. As a rheumatologist, I'm still practicing. Again, I think about nutritional deficits. Cast iron is a really interesting way to get iron
Yep.
because,
Yep.
naturally, but you cook with cast iron and it absorbs, especially with fatty foods like eggs and oils that are healthy, you really can absorb some extra iron without having to take a pill or a supplement. So I'm looking for all of those ways to do it as naturally as possible, but also low tox as well from synthetic, environment. And it does seem to work. And I will mention one other thing. And, look, I'm here to tell you that I don't sell products. I don't sell anything. My work is in curriculum, and it's always been that way. But the book also has a 21-day plan. And the reason I put that in there, and I didn't think it was going to get as much of attention as I actually see it's getting, is because it's hand-holding and walking people through this whole journey in a way that makes sense, right? It's built into this 4 A's of environmental health. Week 1 is assess, where you're assessing, you're using this plan to look through different stuff in your cupboard. You're learning how to look through and assess. Week 2 of the 21-day plan is the avoid or swap, how to look up resources, how to reduce, what are your recipes for personal care and cosmetics. Week 3 is the week about what do you add in? And so it's walking people through, I think, a very overwhelming conversation. And it's not built on fear. It's built on just really good logical information. But just in case people are a little bit concerned about how to get started, I think that's just something to know exists.